Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to the next episode of the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is episode number 28 for Tuesday night, January the 16th, 2018. It is our first gamer experience episode, our GX show, part one for January of 2018. And in fact, our first one of the year overall. Here with me, as always, I have the ever faithful Mr. Osiris Prime.
Hello, everybody. Nice to be here.
And the ducking Dukester, Swiss Guard.
Ducking Dukester. I don't know if that's going to stick. I hope it doesn't stick. Let me phrase that.
It won't. It'll be something different every time.
Oh, okay, I can handle that.
So how have you guys been? It's the post-holiday doldrums. It's the lack of new releases. Have you guys all found things to play to keep you occupied, or have you decided to take a little break? Swiss?
I think it's nice to be able to focus on my game log or backlog and not feel guilty about it. So, but next month I'm already eyeing some releases coming out next month. So, this will be a short-lived respite.
So on the entertainment show, like one of the things I'm going through is, and Dave Pecci is as well. We have some race conditions, right? We were covering The Gifted, but I know I had to binge watch Jessica Jones season 1 because season 2 drops on March 8th. So a lot of things entertainment-wise for me are pegged by a hard stop date, right? So have you guys felt like, Prime, have you felt pressure to get through anything before the next big releases drop? I mean, right now we're kind of fortunate that this year is not looking like 2017, where there was maybe an initial race to get through some things before Resident Evil dropped. We really, pending any Nintendo Direct this month or the first week of February, we really don't have anything hemming us up until like Marchish. But have you still felt kind of pressure to get through some of your backlog stuff?
No, like I mentioned last week, I'm just kind of taking a chill for now for my backlog. So when I feel like playing, I'll jump in there and play something in the backlog. And even the current games, it's just like, like you said, there's nothing that interests me so far, not so much. If Crackdown 3 is on schedule, hopefully that'll come out in the spring, I believe, early spring. And that's pretty much it for the first half of the year, the early part of the year. And if anything Nintendo drops, well, I guess the Nintendo did have that mini direct, so there's a couple things that are going to come out within the next couple months, maybe that I'll pick up, but no pressure though. And entertainment-wise, I'm like totally backlogged on everything because I've been playing games more than watching TV.
Right. So let's go ahead and get started with our GX show. Standard format for the show, we're all going to go round robin talking about the games that we have been playing over the last week or more. This will go back maybe to some of our hiatus things in our playlist. But the basic format is we will do this format show once every 2 weeks. Haven't really looked at how that plays when there's like a fifth week in the month, but in general, we'll do a gamer experience show 1 week. The next week it'll be a deep discussion topic show like our norm was in 2017 in season 1, and then we will come back the week after and do part 2. And we're going to be adding a little sauce, a little salsa, a little flavor to the mix at the end of the show. So sit back, join in if you are participating in the live show in the chat. Throw in some of your comments about what we've been playing, as well as letting us know what you have been playing as well. So I'm first in the barrel this week, and the first thing that I went into on my playlist last week was Rise of Nations Extended Edition. So this is a 2003 game by Big Huge Games, which was helmed by Mr. Brian Reynolds. So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with him, but historically he was the major partner of one Sid Meier, helped out a lot and was one of the lead designers on various iterations of the Civilization series. Also worked on Alpha Centauri. But Extended Edition, I think, released in the Windows Store just last year. So it dropped in September. I picked it up over the Thanksgiving break. This is all part of my low-power PC, low-power GPU gaming experiment that I'm running in 2018. So I don't have a gaming laptop right now. I've talked on a few shows about why I am skewing and veering away from owning a gaming laptop after my last one failed, which was the most recent in a round of several gaming laptops failing during a phase of my life where I basically ran all laptops in the Geek Command Center. But I had problems with that laptop. I've recursively had problems with them, so I'm veering away from those. The Nintendo Switch has a lot to do with that because I tend to take that with me on travel. I maintain an ultra portable notebook, which is kind of what I have to have with me to maintain the blog and the podcast and have the capability of doing some video editing and audio editing on the go. And so that goes with me on vacation as well. I had the Switch, I had the 3DS, but I still wanted to try and experiment to see if I could squeeze in some PC gaming as well, despite not having a PC gaming laptop. So I dove into the Microsoft Store, which I've been a proponent of since the Microsoft Store started and games started populating in there, because what I have seen and I firmly believe in is you don't need a PC or a laptop with a dedicated high-power GPU in it to get some solid PC gaming done. Now, in the past, what I've played a lot of is a lot of mobile game ports, things like Riptide GP, things like the Asphalt series from Gameloft. But what I've noticed recently is that you're getting a lot more legacy games in there as well. And one of the things that I found was Rise of Nations. Rise of Nations is absolutely one of my favorite RTSs of all time. Probably my second or third favorite. Ground Control is up there in one or two. It's somewhere in the Rise of Nations is somewhere in the top four. My favorites are definitely the Ground Control series, the Homeworld series, and Empire Earth. And Empire Earth is probably arguably my favorite. Rise of Nations is very similar to Empire Earth, but what it adds to the mix is it adds the notion of political influence boundaries. So as you expand your empire, you can actually see on the map your political boundary. And if you're one of your enemies or opponents has a political boundary that runs along yours, you can also see their color. So in my case, in my scenarios, I had a red line at my border, and the bad guys, the other guys, had a blue border. So I was playing skirmish mode. This is something I typically do with RTSs. I tend to not play the campaigns. And it's kind of all I need from RTSs. This might be a discussion that we want to have about, this is my sandbox game. I don't need story in it. Just give me a bunch of factions and a bunch of abilities specific to each faction, and I'll make the story up in my own head, which anybody who was reading my Twitter feed over the weekend or watched any of the Let's Plays that I had on YouTube, because I game captured, I think, pretty much all the 4 hours that I put into Rise of Nations over the last week. I kind of wrote, as I always do, my gaming diary entry, and I kind of wrote, what I wrote wound up being kind of a little story recanting the history of my nation. So I started a skirmish, hit the random button. I wound up being the Bantu nation, which another reason why I like Rise of Nations and Empire Earth and these historical games is it actually made me scurry off to Wikipedia to find out who in the world were the Bantu. The Bantu are essentially the predecessors of what we think of as modern-day Africa. So they were the original tribes on the continent of Africa, I believe, that splintered into factions and went through various periods of unification and so on and so forth. So their country power, their faction power is speed. So they have no population cap. Their units are tend to be 50% faster than opposing opponents on the battlefield. So my opponent wound up being the French, so I was up against Napoleon. So eventually, as I play, my big thing that I like to do is I just like to build big nations and cities, and eventually, and so I went through a bunch of. Napoleon was kind of doing some skirmishing actions on my southeast quarter, and eventually I got tired of it, and I felt he had a city close, and so I moved to take that one down. But my units, in their zealotry, I took the one city, and then I took the two armies that I had, and I stationed them on the northeast and southeast quarters, but they couldn't resist following kind of this trail of breadcrumbs of infrastructure that Napoleon had left all the way back until we ran into a really big city. So I lost control of trying to wage very limited action, and it wound up breaking out into full-out war. And one of the comments I made is one of the interesting things in the military part of that campaign was it quickly became a matter of my units and their speed versus his faction buff, which is leadership. In Napoleon's, the little leader unit would frequently show up on the battlefield, personally leading his troops into battle, which often caused me a problem. One of my big things that I really enjoyed, this game does have wonders, just like Civilization does. And I don't really plan those. Like, I don't pick specific wonders that I'm going to build. That's part of my strategy. I kind of build them at random, and whatever buffs they grant, great. Unintentionally, I built the Terracotta Army buff. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that Order of the World, but it's a Chinese archaeological find. It's all like the little I'll call them Mandarin soldiers that they found buried. I mean, when they excavated it, it was like dozens or hundreds of little terracotta soldiers that had been built around a temple.
They weren't little, right? They were like basically size people.
Yes, yeah. They're full size. They're people size, slightly larger than people, I think.
I actually saw those this past summer. Yeah, it was this past summer. They had it at our Nashville Museum. They had some of the artifacts and stuff, which is actually pretty cool. I like that.
Ah, nice. Very cool. Yeah. Very cool. Well, unwittingly, what I didn't know is that what this thing does is it spawns additional units at no cost that are the equivalent of whatever your basic infantry unit is. At certain points, it actually became unmanageable because one of the things in RTSs, particularly in a game like this, is you actually need staging space for your military units. So for your armies, like I have to have enough territory on the map to actually deploy armies to basically just bivouac, and that impacts like where I can put buildings down and stuff. So this like autonomously spawning infantry platoons actually became a problem because I had to keep moving them out of the way so I could lay buildings down. But they were definitely a deciding factor in the war because once things got hot and I was continuously in a fight, I was just able to just drag and grab all of them and just send them off. They were part of my northern army, so I just kept sending them to reinforce that army. But needless to say, it was really cool. And game capturing it was effective because I got one of those moments where when I talk about these things on like the day after around the water cooler, it's kind of like talking about a movie that I watched. So it unfolded really well. So Dan, you had a couple. I mean, Prime, you had a couple questions.
Yeah. So just the way you're talking about this, is it resource management heavy in this game? So you have to go out and get like whatever stone or wood or whatever, anything like that.
The big thing is you really have to get it started. So unlike other games where you create citizens and they go forward for supplies, you build structures. So you build farms, you build a sawmill, you build a wood mill, you build like kind of gathering buildings as infrastructure. And then when you create citizens, what you do is you can just right click on there. They will go to those. And once they attach to that, they will just continue harvesting that autonomously without you needing to micromanage them. So resource gathering micromanagement isn't bad. Military unit micromanagement, I feel like, is really bad. And there's probably a mode that I can put them in, like defensive mode or something. But constantly what I was plagued by, especially when my units were in very close proximity to Napoleon's cities and buildings, anything that triggers them to attack, they will attack it. And then they don't fall back to their original position. So if you don't watch it, you'll have units scattered all over the map. And when we were in close proximity to Napoleon, there were points where he could basically have tanks in his own territory and just lob shells at my units across the border. And like I said, they would just engage those guys and take off after them. So I did have to micromanage the army units a great deal.
Okay. Yeah, because I kind of like that resource management and the micromanaging and stuff like that. It's kind of I always like that in Command and Conquer and those other type of games like that. Wasn't Command and Conquer? I mean, all you had is the one, like the ore. I think that's the only thing you really had to collect, to go out and collect. Actually physically go out and collect it and come back. But so obviously sometimes that those resources diminish and they're gone. So it kind of gets tough, especially when you're playing online. And then the other question I had was, so like the leaders like Napoleon or whoever like country you have or nation, do they have any special abilities, or they give you special buffs or anything like that, or are they just kind of there
I'm still kind of the game is really detailed, and unlike Civilization, where you can kind of, because Civilization is turn based and you can take your time in between turns to like dig into that stuff. You do not have that time in Rise of Nations. You are constantly clicking and managing things on the map. So I really had to do some of that study like in downtime, and I didn't have a lot of that while I was playing. So I think they have tendencies. Like I think Napoleon is has an inherently aggressive tendency to take over territory. But I'm not sure if they have certain powers. The leader unit has powers where like he or she like bolsters morale for any units that they're in proximity of. And maybe they do, because maybe I did read something about Napoleon adding like a certain like a damage level or something to the troops he was in proximity of or something like that. But I've got to dig into that a little more. And I do apologize in my hurry of setting up and trying to do social media and hosting the podcast. I did screw the order up. So Prime, since you have the baton, go ahead and take the next segment, since you were actually supposed to be the one who had first dibs.
That's all right.
Hey, Prime, before you jump in, can I ask Gascles a couple of questions?
Yeah,
go ahead.
So, but before I ask my question though, you mentioned the gaming laptops coming. This is kind of like tech news, but coming down the pike, we got AMD and Intel actually formed kind of a partnership, and some upcoming Intel chips, Core i5 and Core i7s, will actually be using the new Radeon Vega like chipset, I guess, for graphics. So like coming soon, we might have gaming laptops with more powerful graphical capabilities that don't need like some higher and stuff. If you're into that,
yeah, I've been keeping up with that, and what it will definitely at a minimum mean is so I made one mistake with my HP NV13. It has a USB-C port. I realized in running this experiment, which is why I do this stuff to learn stuff. I have come to understand, because I didn't realize, that USB-C is not the same thing as Thunderbolt.
Yeah.
So I will say at a minimum, my next laptop, even if it's an ultra portable, I will at least definitely make it a something with Thunderbolt, so that worst case scenario, I can always add an eGPU enclosure.
So I thought, since you touched on that, I thought I'd throw that out there. I was curious. When you mentioned like Napoleon and stuff, like my mind immediately jumped to Civ, but it doesn't sound like you really interact with Napoleon as Napoleon. It's just, I know I'm versus Napoleon, and he can do X, Y, and Z. I know in like Civilization, they kind of had a little bit of fun with it, and there's kind of a bit of a sense of humor when you're interacting, with like in trade or whatever. And I guess because it's real time, you don't really have that ability to interact with them as a leader. So
what I haven't dug into yet is so in these skirmishes that I'm running, I think it says every man for himself, but every person for himself. So there are no diplomatic options enabled. I will eventually get to the point where I enable diplomacy, and I'll be able to take a look at that and see what that level of interaction is.
Okay.
Rocket League.
Yeah, some of these first couple real quick, because I literally just played these yesterday for like 45 minutes each or so. And I unfortunately didn't get to play a whole lot of games this past week, but I did play a little Rocket League last night and Skyrim on the Switch. Rocket League, I just jumped online just to do a few quick matches. I was just doing regular, the soccer games. I usually have like the soccer games. There's a basketball and, a Swiss. I don't know if you tried any of these, but there's basketball games called hoops. And then there's a hockey one, which is basically like soccer, but it's a puck instead of a ball. I think I've mentioned that before. And then there's like 3-on-3 and 4-on-4, and I have like all of those kind of just set because you can like pick which ones you want to do when you're playing online. But it only, I don't know if it's because it's the first ones that pop up, but I usually just go through the 3-on-3 and 4-on-4 soccer games. So I just picked those, and I was like, all right, whatever, because I only had a little bit before I had to go to sleep. Yeah, I was playing that. It was fun. Playing online on the Switch. Once again, it's like almost always just like I'm playing with, I'm assuming like PC or Xbox people, because it's always you can always tell by the icon that it's someone else. It says something like Psyonix or whatever the name of the company is. I can't remember what they're called right now. but it just has like their little symbol if it's not someone on the Wii or excuse me, on the Switch, because usually on the Switch you'll have like an avatar of whoever you picked when you set up the system. So, and most of the time, like I said, it's always some outside game console. So it's just cool, which is fine. And I'm usually able to play with those. I don't have any problems playing on the Switch. I'm always, like I said, primarily in handheld mode, so it's fine. I can play like that. It's no big deal. And then Skyrim, man, it's really been getting hard on Skyrim lately. I don't know. It's because maybe I'm playing the mage mostly, and I do a little bit of archery, but it's really hard doing just like pure magic. You really have to like buff yourself up before you go into battle, before you can, otherwise you're like killed in just like a few hits. So it took me a while to do like a couple sections that I was just trying to do real quick. And eventually I just had to I keep forgetting that I can do all these buffs. So I had to go back in and, click on all these potions and all these other things that you can do to yourself and the magic that I've acquired and learned. So I was doing that and finally able to destroy my enemies at this point. But
do you feel like that's detracts from the experience, or do you feel like, you know what, if I'm a mage, I'm not going to be a beefy dude, and I'm going to need to rely on my wits and arcane abilities to proceed? Does it draw you into the world?
Yeah, for me now, it draws me into the world. I remember when I played it originally back on the 360. I started out as a mage too, and it was really hard. I kind of got frustrated a lot and kind of just walked away from the game and came back. But this time, I'm fine with it. It's a little bit more fun. It puts the game into a new light for me, at least, because before I was just doing archery and just like a shield and a sword, which is pretty easy because you have a sword, you can always block stuff. So it's kind of nice to have a little bit of a challenge. And I know, because after reading, I've read all kinds of stuff on Skyrim. After a certain point, you pretty much can just beef yourself up to like God mode, basically. So you just rip through everybody. So it's nice that I'll get to that eventually, but it's probably gonna take a while. And right now I can summon some creatures too. They're a little lower level, so they get killed if there's too many enemies on screen that's coming after me, because they usually go after that person or that thing first. But it's cool because I can just sit back and just kind of shoot with my arrow or shoot with my magic, my firebolts or lightning or anything like that. So it's cool, but I'm really enjoying it. So those are the only two games that I've actually played on the Switch this past week. So Swiss, looks like you got a PS4 game before the Switch game here on your list.
Yeah, I'm still ripping through Horizon Zero Dawn. I just really like that game, and I keep telling myself I need to let that rest a bit and put something else in my PlayStation rotation, because I tend to be better about experimenting with different games on the Switch. But Horizon Zero Dawn is kind of like assumed all of my PS4 attention. But I'm getting farther in the story, and I kind of just want to push through and complete it. As I've been playing, DB's kind of watered it down for me a little bit. not directly, but he did link an article at one point in our internal chat that kind of poo-pooed Horizon Zero Dawn a little bit, and in light of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And the description of the time was, Zelda lets you explore, and Horizon Zero Dawn is a map with a list of destinations. So, it's destination based. And every time I jump into the map to look where my next quest, like if there's anything around, or if there's any items that I could, collectibles that I can grab nearby, or plan my next move, that's in the back of my head. I am, finding my list, and I'm going to either warp there or, just kind of to rush there and not take in the scenery. So I've been debating with myself whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. And on the one hand, Zelda allows you to explore, and Horizon Zero Dawn has this exquisite, landscape, but I feel like if I had to like wander around for some of the items and wander around to find the quest markers and who I had to talk to, it would become an exercise in frustration. So, I enjoy the fact that the collectibles, they don't like give you the exact location of the collectible. So, they have these metal flowers, for example, that you have to find, and if you collect a set of them, you can trade it in for some goodies. They don't tell you exactly where it is. You get the general area, and then you can explore the area a little bit. So they did kind of allow that, and just by and large, I can accept the fact that I need to go to this destination, and then when I'm there, I can enjoy the area. But I don't think I'd like the way the game is structured. I don't think I'd like it if I had to really, really explore without the help of the map. With Zelda, there's a lot less. I mean, they have the Korok seeds, and there's some limited side quests and whatnot. But for the most part, just getting from point A to point B is an experience in and of itself. And Horizon doesn't have that level. I can't climb anything in Horizon like you can in Zelda. There's no, hang glider in Horizon Zero Dawn. So just the movement about the map it's a subtle difference, but as I've reflected upon it, it's an important distinction in the two games. And while they may seem similar superficially, those little few design decisions really provide two different gameplay experiences, and I'm cool with both of them, and I enjoy both of them.
You're right. That's what I was going to say. I agree with you, and I don't necessarily feel that one makes one better than the other.
Right.
One thing I'll say is, congratulations to Horizon Zero Dawn, who's getting their due after I felt like they were kind of snubbed in a lot of the Game of the Year awards. They are putting a major run on the DICE Awards, which are later this month. They are nominated in 10 categories, and they're the most nominated game in the DICE Awards. I understand what DB is saying. The fact that it's a little more choose your own adventure than discover your own adventure in Horizon Zero Dawn is a thing that appeals to me because I'm a big time management freak when it comes to gaming, right? I need to know what I can get accomplished in a certain period of time. And he's right in that differentiation, but I also feel like that's a good chunk of what leads to me not having spent a ton of time in Zelda. I love Zelda. It's a great design. I appreciate I'll call it the Western forward design emphasis in changing the drumbeat of what a Zelda game is. But I still find it a little unwieldy in terms of when I open it up, I'm not really certain exactly what I'm going to get accomplished in a chunk of time. Mm-hmm. Now they do have like whatever, I can't remember what they're called, but the 5 towers or whatever that's in each like region or whatever that you're supposed to go to. That does kind of give it a little bit of a playlist kind of feel.
Yeah, once obviously the Great Plateau is your original starting location, you find the shrines, you get off the Great Plateau. The next kind of major thrust is the Divine Beasts, and there's 4 of them. So you conquer them, and at that point, in theory, you can go take on Ganon. But that's a very loose structure for you to go if you want to just rush through. That's the structure, but I don't think that's what the game designers want you to do. They want you to just enjoy being in the world. And like you said, if you don't like the fact that there's not some structure there, I can see how that can become like well, I'm gonna use my time somewhere else. I'm trying to think of the word for a person that has a full-time job and a family, and what your valuable time for someone else.
Yeah, we call that a member of the cast of E2KG.
Yeah.
Hey, so Swiss, if there's nothing else on HDD, you Prime have been playing another game with a Z in its name.
Well, maybe not so much playing it.
Take off, eh? Loser.
Yeah. So I was trying to play Dragon Ball Fighter Z beta over the weekend, and I just could never get into the game. And there's actually reports of them having network problems. So I got into the lobby. Well, this is how it went. I tried the first time. You go through like the little, this is a beta, blah blah blah, and then you go through the end user agreement, which like was a pain in the butt and privacy agreement, because you had to scroll down this big long thing, which is fine because usually you can just like speed through it, but this wasn't speed through, and you just had to like slowly go down, slowly. So it took forever. So I did that twice just to get in there. So finally got through that. Got to like the main screen where it says, "All right, hit start." I did that, and then it kicked me back out to the Xbox.
And wait, I just want to ask you. So the EULA was one of these things where they force you to actually scroll all the way to the bottom.
Yeah, and then you can hit A to agree or continue.
Right.
Whatever.
As if that actually forces anyone to actually read or consume.
Yeah. Exactly. So I was just pressing down on the stick, and I was just like looking up the whole time, like, all right, whenever, let's hurry up.
Right.
But
I'll keep my curses of software design about that type of shenanigan to myself for right now.
And like I said, usually it's fine because you can just speed through it, but they didn't let you speed through on this one.
No, it's not fine, game designers. It is horrible. Like, don't put a system in your game that doesn't actually enforce the type of behavior that it is such a useless waste of your code time and the consumer's code time. Like, people are going to read the EULA or they're not going to read the EULA. Don't force them to do something stupid that doesn't. You're basically taking bureaucracy and injecting it into games, and most of us play games to not be involved with bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Unless the game is a political simulation and you actually want to play bureaucracy.
Yeah. Like Papers, Please.
Yes. Off soapbox.
Or I could say, throw in like 15 I don't want to say symbols, like the developer's little symbol and signature and icon and all that, and you can't skip through it. That's a pain in the butt too on a lot of games lately, I've noticed. But anyways, so I got kicked back to the Xbox menu. All right, so I went back in. Fortunately, I didn't have to go through the privacy in the EULA. I just got straight in. I got to the lobby. I got in. There's like a little, I guess it's just online, I'm assuming, because I didn't see another game mode, but it just put me right into what's the that big tower? The Kai's Tower, I guess it is, or whatever, that big island thing in the sky. I don't remember what it's called. So you're just sitting there with like a bunch of people, little, like the chibi characters running around, and you can pick different modes. There's only one mode you can do is just to fight online, or like look at leaderboards, I think was the other one. So I go in there. It took me a minute to figure out how to even get into an online match. I did that. I was waiting, nothing. So I had to do it like a couple times, and finally I found somebody. We started up, the screen popped up, we chose our characters, and then kicked me out to the Xbox menu again. I was like, you know what? It's just beta, so I'm just gonna uninstall this game and not even try to play anymore.
So let me ask you this one thing. So I talked last year about how starting to play betas in January burned me out very early in the year, and by like June-ish, I was like, I'm done with betas. Like, I can't do it. And we were trying to be part of the beta scene to enhance our content on the podcast, but I was like, I just like this is not necessarily fun for me. So have you thought, or are you planning on pacing yourself with regards to betas this year, or do you feel like you played too many betas last year, or too few, or how are you thinking about approaching that?
Yeah, I was definitely too few. I mean, I signed up for a lot and I got into a lot. I just never had a chance to actually play them, because usually it's just like that weekend, like that 3 days, maybe 4 days that they throw it out there for you. So I'm going to try to get into some more, and actually, and the one other thing that when I did play these betas and did go through, I just never went back to the publisher or the developer and say, hey, this was my experience. I didn't do that a lot. I think I did it a couple times. So, and I felt bad because it's obviously you get in there to actually test the game. So I want to try to do that more if I do get into more betas. But yeah, this one was I mean, come on, I need to at least get in the game to try to figure it out. And this game looks really cool. It's a fighting game. If you guys don't know, if people out there don't know, kind of more akin to, say more like Marvel versus Capcom, just kind of that fast paced jumping around. There's all kinds of, energy blasts going on. And, I think you can pick partners and stuff like that, if I remember correctly. So it looks like something I'd want to play, even though, fighting games a little bit, my old age, I'm getting a little slower on those, so I'm not the best on them. I don't know if I'd actually go online if I did buy this, but it looked like fun. But it was a beta. I was kind of angry at first, but I was just what, it's a beta, so I'll calm down and maybe once the game comes out and it's get reviewed, if it's still having problems, then
what is the release date? I'm looking up.
Yeah, I don't remember. February, maybe, I think. While you're looking at that.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, sorry.
I should have looked it up before I said something.
Yeah, why would I know that? Come on.
It says the initial release date's January 26th of this year. So
okay, maybe
it's not really a beta. The game's done. They're just trying to get their servers in line.
Yeah, it's more like a network test, basically.
Yeah.
And it's failed. Failed horribly.
Well, the other thing I was going to say was they tweeted out this morning that because of the problems with that this past weekend, they haven't announced a date yet, but there will be another 24-hour beta probably coming up. So, I would feel like, I guess earlier in the year, I played a beta for that Dissidia Final Fantasy. And
I saw you guys going back and forth on that.
Yeah. DB asked me if I downloaded the new beta, and I said no because I didn't like the old beta. But
see, that's not the beta though, because it was like way before
that was
the game
way
released.
back. So I was like, maybe I should, and then I was like, no, I don't like fundamentally I don't like the way the game was structured. Otherwise, I probably would have jumped back in. But to me, like Dragon Ball DBZ Fighters, if it was having it's a little bit alarming that they're having troubles like this close to launch, but I guess that's why you do something like this. I don't know.
Yeah, hopefully they can iron it out, and they'll be ready once launch day comes. So we'll see. We will see.
It's gotten me wanting to watch DBZ again. I am kind of starting to buy into the hype. But
yeah, the game looks great. I mean, it looks beautiful. The animation and all that. It's 2D hand drawn kind of animation. It's not 3D, so it looks really cool. So I was really looking forward to playing it. But maybe on the next round, maybe I'll try to download and do it again. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that was unfortunately my experience, but not really any experience. So I guess Cleese, looks like you got a couple more PC games here that you checked out.
Yeah, so I rounded up my low power PC GPU gaming experiment with some time in Space Marshals, which is a game that released initially on mobile and then was eventually ported to PC. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that. It's a cool game, top down, action oriented game. Has some control problems. I started with keyboard and mouse, and I eventually had to back off and play with my Xbox, one of my Xbox One game controllers. So that worked fine. What I actually want to spend the time on this segment talking about is Skyrogue. So this was also my new game purchase window. So I picked up Skyrogue, Air Missions Hind, the deluxe edition, which has the Hind plus 3 other Russian attack helicopters in it. And I also picked up GTR 2, which is a sequel to one of the really high end racing games. But I out of those 3 games, I decided to start my play testing with Skyrogue. Skyrogue is a very arcadey kind of flight game. It has kind of blocky, I don't want to call them voxels, but it just has a very highly stylized animated style, art style to it that is non-realistic. You are playing in some type of futuristic or alternate reality thing. Your aircraft carrier is kind of like a shield helicarrier, except it's powered by jets. The enemy also has like these helicarriers in the game. You launch from the air carrier, and then you have missions. They're pretty quick. Missions are 10 minutes, sometimes 15 minutes. You can really play any given mission for as long as you want. What I found is when you take off, your mission target is firmly identified and pretty easy to pick out on your screen. I generally go in and take out the mission target right away because you can, if you get to it quickly, you can take it out before any resistance is mounted. But then you can spend the rest of the time in mission just taking out targets. The islands that you fly over are procedurally generated, so they're new and different each time. There's supposed to be a way for you to go back to your carrier to rearm and refuel. I have not figured that out. Every time I fly over the carrier, it automatically lands me most of the time. But one of the things I'm finding at this stage, this age of my gaming career, is that while I love flight sims, one of the problems with flight sims is that you can fly a realistic mission in a flight sim, but you can often not really get a lot done. You engage a relatively small number of enemies because you really have to defeat them. Your aircraft really isn't a bullet sponge. So it's just as fun. It's equally fun to me to play these kind of faux flight sims where you get a lot of stick time, right? You get a lot of time in the air. You get to engage a lot of different enemies, which means inherently you get more time to rehearse and practice your tactics. I'm really enjoying this game. I pulled it up and thought I would only play it for 30 minutes. I wound up playing it for a couple of hours. Got a couple of achievements. It does have Steam achievements. It's about $20 on Steam. It's not super expensive. I was able to break out my Thrustmaster T16000 flight control system because I'm at the point where if I don't get these flight control systems figured out, I'm going to shove them to the side and just start playing with a controller. I did spend some time with the Thrustmaster configuration utility, which I've always found those things to be enigmas in and of themselves and can never figure them out. The biggest problem with the T16000, as is the case with a lot of these HOTAS systems, is Windows will often identify one control or the other like always being on. And so whenever you go into the configuration utility for the game and you try and remap a key, it immediately grabs like a control that Windows is seeing as always being on. I was able to figure out how in the Thrustmaster software to disable a control. So that's going to be huge because the problem with the T16000 is it has a throttle slider on the joystick base and it has the second piece of it is a throttle. So the biggest problem I find in going in and configuring it with a lot of games is I want to configure the throttle to be on the actual throttle accessory, but I can't because the game immediately sees the throttle slider on the joystick and maps the throttle key to that. So I think I figured out a way to nerf that. So that was good. Unfortunately, Skyrogue can only see one controller. This T16000 set, some of these systems, the way they work is the secondary accessory like plugs into the first one and then the first one attaches over USB. But with the T16000, and this is the new flight control system I bought last year, it has individual USB inserts, and Skyrogue can only see one and will only allow you to map one. So that was a little bit of a disappointment, but given the arcadey style of Skyrogue, it worked out just fine. And like I said, I really, really enjoyed the game. You get a lot of dogfighting done because you get a lot of air contacts, and that you often don't get a lot of that in flight sims. You get to one, maybe two engagements because you have realistic hard points, so you can only mount so many air-to-air missiles. So I love the run of Digital Combat Simulator, which we talked about a few months ago on that gaming experience show, but it was fun getting into Skyrogue, and I'm looking forward to playing the other two games that I picked up this last week too. So
yeah, I was watching some video just now. Actually, it looks pretty cool.
It is.
Even with the blocky, the blocky kind of vector graphics, but it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I was
more my wheelhouse than like a sim. Then
yeah.
I was doing the same thing. It was I saw the screenshots and I'm like, ew. And then and then you see the game in action. It's like, oh, that's kind of neat. And then I thought, I'd never heard of this game. How did Agasicles find it?
Well, so that's a good thing. I'm just going to briefly talk about that. And I think we need to plan this for a discussion session. Normally, what I do in my game purchase weeks is I go to Metacritic and I look at the top rated releases. And then I go to whatever platform I want to buy that game in. But with Steam, seems a little different because few PC games get reviewed unless they're like AAA blockbuster releases. So I did look on Metacritic. I didn't find anything I wanted. I went to Steam. Steam and DB tried to warn us in the year in review shows. Steam is basically useless to me as far as like discovery and finding something to play. And And so what I had to do is I already had the joystick out. You guys saw that the earlier games that I had given options to pick, and I clearly wanted to play a flight simulator joystick-enabled game. I basically had to specifically go into the flight sim genre and sort the games by user rating, and then just look for something that I didn't have, that I hadn't played, that was highly rated by users. And I'm definitely gonna. I can't go into Steam wide open like I used to. I have to go into a specific genre. There are so many games in there now. It's a complete dumpster fire. I think there were like 1,000 games released like in the last 60 days or something like that.
Worse than mobile.
Yes. Devs need to do a better job. Like, you hover over the little icon to get a pop-up and expansion of the game, like description. Like, if that icon doesn't convey anything to me, then I just don't have time to dumpster dive into the description. So it's bad. It is officially turned the corner, and it's bad. I'm wondering how much longer I'm going to be able to use it. Again, I'm trying to procure from different streams, because that lesson learned of NBA 2K16 trying to get my refund when that failed. I now know not to buy everything from Steam. But I may start having to go to Good Old Games or the Microsoft Store just to try and find games, or else my searches on Steam are going to be highly constrained and very limited. So that's how I wound up finding this. Is I filtered on flight sims, and then I sorted on the top ranking games and just went down the list. And even still, I found this on like the second page, right? And I was on the third page before I finally found, all the things that I wanted to buy. So, Swiss, you've also played something that's a little even more fantastical than Skyrogue. You have been playing more Mario Rabbids on Switch.
Yeah, I had kind of stopped playing that game, and hadn't gotten very far, and I decided to pick it up again. The other game I've been playing is Super Mario Odyssey on the Switch, which that game is just fun. I'm surprised at how enjoyable it is to find moons, power moons. But I'm sure I'll be playing that in the coming weeks, so I'll save a detailed chat until another GX episode. But for Mario Rabbids, the reason why I took it up, Eurogamer actually had an interesting article earlier in this week on the 11th, so almost a week ago. It's called the pitch that convinced Miyamoto to back Mario Rabbids. So if you remember back in E3, when Miyamoto was up on the stage introducing the game, he was pretty much describing the game and gave a little praise to Davide Soliani, who is the lead on the project. And Soliani kind of raised his hand from the audience, and everybody kind of was, he kind of became like a little bit of an interesting internet sensation because he was getting obviously teary-eyed. So this Eurogamer article talked a little bit about the process leading up to that. And it turns out Miyamoto is basically Soliani's spirit animal, his idol in the game development world, right? So Miyamoto was the reason that Soliani got into game development, and it's a really charming story. Like way back in the 15 years ago, Soliani found out he was in Italy. He's from Italy. Found out Miyamoto was doing some presentation somewhere in Italy, and he started calling hotels. Him and his friends called hotels, pretending to be Miyamoto's translator until they figured out what hotel Miyamoto was at. Then they could go and meet him. And despite having like a fever, he went and got some stuff signed, and they show the picture and everything. So Soliani ends up at Ubisoft, and basically gets an opportunity to develop a Nintendo franchise game, and hits it out of the park. And it got me nostalgic, even though Mario Rabbids isn't that far in history. it rapidly rose back up my backlog list, and so I picked it up again. And so a little bit of sentimentality, but playing it again, if you want a different experience, like I enjoy those, I enjoy strategy games, and I do feel like the game rewards intelligent play. So my kids, my young son especially, likes watching me play, thinks the rabbits are funny, and it was just a good time. So I expect to be putting some more in there. And if you haven't tried it out because you thought it's like some weird mascot driven hack job crossover, you should play it, because there's a real game under the hood, and they did an excellent job.
So Prime, have you been playing this as well?
Yeah, I've been the last few months I've been playing off and on, and I think I had mentioned it a few shows. Well, I shouldn't say a few shows ago. Last year. The game is hard. It's hard for me. Swiss is right. There is definitely a strategy to it. Like, each character has their own set of attributes, so you gotta put that into play. So you gotta like really get your team together beforehand, and know what you're doing before you go in there, which is kind of hard, I guess, because you don't know what's coming up. So sometimes you got to lose, and they're like, all right, this is how this guy's going to fight. So you go back and switch your team around, and you can get it going. But yeah, there's a lot of strategy in it, and a lot of people have said it's gameplay wise, it's comparable to XCOM. So if you've ever played XCOM, I guess you kind of have an idea of what Mario Rabbids is about. So you have never tried it, I guess, Glees?
I have not, no. And my Switch queue is pretty full of things that I still need to play. So I don't know if this is something I'll get around to until later in the game's life cycle. Plus, I anticipate that there's going to be a significant number of things dropping in March. So I don't know. We'll have to see. So let's go rapid fire for our last games in our playlist. Prime, I'll let you kick it off with PUBG.
All right. Yeah, I've been once again. I played a couple. I think actually only one night, maybe over the weekend of PUBG. And the biggest thing out of this is I streamed a couple of play sessions. So I forgot why I stopped, but I streamed for like maybe 20 minutes, and then I had to stop, and then I picked back up and streaming again on Mixer. It seems pretty stable for me now. I know I had a little bit of trouble with Mixer when I first started trying to use it. Now I have the Xbox X, so everything's pretty smooth on everything that I'm playing. So, and even PUBG runs a lot smoother than before. So, but I streamed a couple of episodes or a couple of sessions. I got that on YouTube. Unfortunately haven't been able to go in there and kind of clean up, the description and all that title yet. So I'll try to get that out this week, hopefully, and I try to push that out on my channel. So yeah, it was kind of fun to just go back, and I haven't streamed in a long time. So it was kind of nice to go back and do that, and especially with a game like this, because it's just, especially near the end, you only have 10 to 15 people left, and it's really tense, and you got everybody kind of just crawling around because no one wants to get shot at, obviously, or hiding behind trees and rocks and all kinds of buildings and stuff. So it's really cool.
So now, do you also have Fortnite?
Yes.
So it dawned on me this week. I heard that it sounds like Fortnite is not that far behind PUBG in total player base and not in concurrent players. Fortnite is getting an update here soon. Do you anticipate that pulling you away from PUBG at all?
I don't think so. I haven't gone back to it since I started playing PUBG. I did like the game. It was fine. It was fun too. A little bit more, obviously, the graphics are a little more cartoony. There's no vehicles in that one, which I kind of like. In PUBG, you can kind of get across the map a little bit better. Although the map isn't as big as PUBG, but it's still fairly large. So it's kind of annoying when you got to kind of run from one side to the other, depending on where the borders are kind of closing in on. So I might jump in there real quick, maybe to check it out, but I'm probably more than likely not, at least not right away. Maybe I'll wait a little bit.
Okay, my last game, rapid fire, was Lord of the Rings, Shadow of Mordor. I popped over to my OG PlayStation 4 and played some of that. One of the things that I realized while playing Shadow of War is, number one, the thing that brings me back is I'm really starting to fall in love with these combat systems. So these third-person combat systems, which I have historically not paid much attention to because I'm just not a big third-person action-adventure kind of game person. But playing Lord of the Rings, Shadow of Mordor, particularly on the heels of putting a chunk of time into Assassin's Creed Origins, I'm really liking those third person combat systems. Shadow of Mordor is much more, as I mentioned before, is much more a game of timing, and I constantly get myself into trouble by spamming and button mashing, and not forgetting that I need to, in that game you need to pause for a second, wait for the counter that you're going to have to throw, and then throw the counter and then go back to button mashing. I'm definitely guilty of being impatient and not doing that. And while I took down a 1 war chief and 3 captains, which I was pretty happy with for the amount of time I put in, I got killed 3 times by like rank and file orcs, because I felt like, dude, I just destroyed a war chief. I'm not even going to take time with like you 4 orc thugs, right? I can't be bothered. But being careless in those instances, I got killed, which resulted in me allowing these kind of scrub orcs to get promoted to captains, which made me feel like I'd set myself back. So that was after I killed the war chief, which was the first thing I did in that gameplay session. So thereafter, in the remaining like hour and a half that I put into the game, I felt like I needed to take down some of those war chiefs, and that's some of the captains, and that's why I wound up hunting down and killing 3 captains. I also completed a chunk of the one segment of the Gollum story. So despite as old as that game is, I've never finished it. PlayStation 4 metrics say I have about 10 hours put into it. It's a game that I like going back to because I've learned so much more about it than when I first started playing and putting time into it. So Swiss will wrap up the playlist segment with your rapid fire discussion of Super Mario Odyssey.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add, other than, it was fun. I don't have it listed here, but I played a little Borderlands 2 again on the PC, and I like Handsome Jack. He's a great villain. So I'll leave it at that.
Very cool. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce our new segment of the Gamer Experience Show. Give me just 1 second.
Might have lost you, Mike.
You were moving.
No. I'm not. Hold on. I'm trying to get something to go off here.
No, not hear anything.
I was trying to get Google Home to give me a drum beat, but apparently that may be an Alexa skill, and not Google Home. So
it was just at a pitch not audible by the
right. Yeah. Those ultrasonic things.
Your dogs are covered in the background,
right? So at any rate, we'll try and pump through this fairly quickly. So this new segment is you pick my game, which what we're going to do when we do a Gamer Experience show is the host is going to previously, behind the curtain, will have pitched 3 games that they want to play, and the other 2 co-hosts will get to pick what game that host has to play. And then that host will come back, hopefully in the next 2 weeks, in the next Gamer Experience show, and discuss. So this is kind of a variation on what we did on the old Casual Adult Gamer show. Prime was one of the co-hosts on that show, along with myself and another cast member named Elemental Storm. We allowed the other 2 co-hosts to pick what a third person had to play. That is how I wound up playing Outcast. I would have never played that game had those 2 not forced me to play it, and I regret it to this day. And I have not gone back and played Outcast DLC or Outcast 2.
and that's why we picked it.
Right. Exactly. So we're going to toy with the formula. Some of it is maybe just to throw a curveball in a given host's intended playlist pattern. We're going to try and tweak it in coming around to, because part of the way we did it before was to kind of force some discovery and make somebody consider playing something that they may not have normally played on their own. As it is, the host gets a little bit of control and gets to pitch 3 games, but they may be 3 games in 3 different genres. They may be 3 games that are the same. The end result might be the rest of the team might tell that person to go ahead and play something new that they might have held off on playing in their backlog, or may tell them to go play the thing that they dredged up out of the backlog. So for me, this is for me, the 3 picks I made was very much about what I was doing at the time. And at the time, like I said, I was playing with the Thrustmaster T16000 HOTAS. I maintained that theme for the picks that I offered. And so the 3 picks that I left for Swiss and Prime to choose from are Air Missions Hind, which is a relatively new game available on Steam. It is it's not quite a flight sim. It's kind of a flight action game. Actually, all of these are flight action games. So that's kind of the theme for this thing. It's things that are flight oriented and that you can use a flight control system with, but are not as sim head and gear headed as something like Digital Combat Simulator. So Air Missions Hind was the first option. Second option was Blazing Angels 2, Secret Missions of World War II, which probably, that Blazing Angels series probably got most of its notoriety from being an Xbox game during the 360 era. But I have these versions on the PC so that I can try out using them with the Thrustmaster T16000 HOTAS. So Air Missions Hind, Blazing Angels 2, Secret Missions of World War II, and the final option is Blazing Angels Squadrons of World War II. So gentlemen, what are you going to make me play? And tell me a little bit about why you voted for that game. Prime, we'll start with you.
All right, I'm going to, so actually I played the demo of, I think it was the original Blazing Angels Squadron World War II back on 360. So I know a little bit about that game. I think I played I think it only had probably the first few missions. So, and it was fun. I liked it. Blazing Angels 2, I never played that one. I'm pretty sure I played it was the first one that I did the demo of. So I'm going to pick Air Missions Hind. At least that's my vote. I was kind of watching the videos of actually all three of these, and then the Air Missions Hind looked kind of cool just because it was kind of simmy. You kind of ride around this helicopter and do these missions. So that's my pick.
Okay, yeah. Before I bought it, I watched some of the gameplay videos, and one of the things I was really impressed by was the fidelity of the graphics, despite the really inexpensive price that this game was. So, Swiss, what is it that you are going to try to make me play?
Well, when I saw this list, my thought was that you were not able to wait for Ace Combat 7 to release. So, and that's how you got the itch. But so I kind of had it down between Air Missions Hind and Blazing Angels 2 because I looked it up, and the first Blazing Angels actually didn't have a very impressive Metacritic score or Metascore on Steam. So I was like, don't go that direction. And so it really came down to, do you want more of a story experience, which I think Blazing Angels 2 has, or I watched the video on Air Missions Hind, and I like the fact that it's chopper based, right? You're in a helicopter, which is a little different from Ace Combat, where you're flying supersonic jets, and even I guess from your Skyrogue experience, it's a little different. So I'll vote Air Missions Hind.
Okay, and one of the tweaks that we made to the process over the weekend, even as we were preparing to launch this, is I realized that there was the potential for ties and a need for a tiebreaker. So we actually have the fourth co-host, who is off this week, give a blind vote, and the host of that episode keeps it to themselves. You all be pleased to know that DBQ Hams also voted for me to play Air Missions Hind. So over the next 2 weeks, that is one of the games that I will definitely invest time in. That game is $11 on Steam right now.
I saw that. So I may end up jumping in, and you can do a little co-op. Well, we can try that out too.
Oh yeah, definitely. And the deluxe set, and I think this is actually dropped from when I bought it. The deluxe version, which gives you 3 other helicopters to fly. I don't know if that gives you additional missions. It says 15 missions, and lets you play multiplayer wise. It lets you play. You can play campaign missions, so you can do co-op, deathmatch, instant action. So when it actually has a mission editor as well. And one of the cool things is it has Steam Workshop support. So with the deluxe edition, you get these additional 5. Even if you buy the 3 DLC packs after the fact, the 3 DLC packs together are $6.27. They're $2 a piece, or you can buy the whole thing for $15. I did buy the whole thing. But with Steam Workshop, I'm sure that people are spooling, additional helicopter models for you to fly in the game. Those are probably mostly cosmetic and don't necessarily really change how the Kilo handles. But I will definitely dive into this and check it out.
You can have a My Little Pony Hind.
So I did. Skyrogue also has skins, and it has you earn money on missions. You can upgrade weapons. and you can gain access to different aircraft. I forgot to mention that on Skyrogue, and it has a large inventory of skins that you can change as well. So that's another thing that kind of makes Skyrogue pretty interesting. But I will, as you all have directed, I'll bring it a little bit more back to the real world in appearance. But yeah, this game is very positive, has very positive reviews. 83% of the 214 user reviews are positive for Air Missions Hind on Steam, and it released in March of 2016. So cool. Very interested to get into this. And I'm pretty sure it lists full, single player, multiplayer, co-op Steam achievements. That's always great. Full controller support, Steam Workshop, cloud saves, leaderboards, and has a level editor. So that is a lot of game that you get for $11. So that is going to do it for us for this episode of Enough to Keep Going. Once again, this has been episode number 28, the GX Show, part 1 for January 2018, taped this evening, Tuesday, the 16th of January, 2018. So any other parting shots, gentlemen, before we get out of here?
No, other than just we don't have to finish these games, too. I just want to throw out there for everybody.
Right. Yes, this is just
kind of a play. Yeah, we just want to play through them. Get some, different going through our playlists.
Yeah, it's very loose, informal. Put a chunk of time into that game.
Yeah.
So, and if for listeners or viewers who watch this after the live stream and the archive version, you are welcome to jump in on this game and play along with us. So some other podcasts kind of do play along with us. They dedicate like a month or 2 week blocks of time where viewers play along. You are welcome to do so and join us. Pretty inexpensive. I need to dig into this. I may try and add this to my low power PC experiment as well. It doesn't even list like a specific card that you need. It just says whatever card you have, minimum needs to be DirectX 10 compatible with 1 gigabyte of VRAM. If you think about it, 1060s, the low end card, for NVIDIA, the minimum card has 3 gigs of RAM, and even a 1050 Ti has 4 gigs of RAM. And its recommended GPU is a DirectX 11 compatible card with 4 gigs of RAM. So if you've got a 1050 Ti, you could definitely play this game. I think I'm going to try and put this game on one of my Intel HD GPUs and just try and see how it plays. So I will do that as well for this Tell Me What to Play segment and report back on that in a couple weeks. All right. Well, thanks very much for joining in. Thanks very much, Osiris Prime, for hanging out with us for an hour.
No problem. It's good to be here.
Swiss, thanks very much for joining in and commenting on the fun.
Yep. Good night, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining in. That's going to do it for the E2KG crew. We are out of here.